Welcome to Module 1 of the Beginner Teacher Blueprint. We're going to be looking in this first video at what your studio will look like generally and the big picture of your studio setup. So the first thing to think about is the actual lesson format. So whether you're going to teach one-on-one, partner, dyad, duet, basically 2 student lessons, or group lessons, 3 or more students at one time. When you're looking at individual lessons, one-on-one lessons, this is probably what you grew up with most likely, and it's the standard format that we think of. So the benefit here is really that it's comfortable, it's familiar, and you get to focus on what your student needs in the moment and adjust your lesson planning to suit them as you go. It's also, in a way, the simplest to set up and probably needs the least amount of equipment, but it also has a slight cap on the income potential because, of course, your time is being traded one-on-one with someone else. So there is a maximum that you can get out of that way of trading your time for money. Then when it comes to partner lessons or dyad lessons or duet lessons or whatever else you want to call them, this could mean several different things. So to me, when I talk about partner lessons, I mean 2 students at the same time for the entire time, 45 minutes or 60 minutes. I don't recommend that you ever do partner lessons for 30 minutes because it just will not be enough time. So that's what I mean when I say partner lessons. Here in this category, we can also look at things like overlapping lessons, where a student comes for a certain portion of the time one-on-one, and then they stay for an extra length of time with the next student, overlapping together to work on things like theory games or duets or improvisation, that kind of thing. This is what actually most students in my studio are now in, and it's working really well for me. So they either come for 20 minutes or 40 minutes, depending on their age, one-on-one time, and then they stay for 20 minutes, or they come early for 20 minutes with another student where we get to do all these games and all that fun stuff. Another variation on this theme is rotating lessons of some kind. So this could be 3 students coming at the same time and doing 20 minutes with you, then say 20 minutes of theory work and 20 minutes of tech time. Or they could be 2 students doing half and half an hour of each, doing basically at different stations. So those are some different options on partner lessons. All of this is detailed inside the workbook. And then finally, you might want to look at group lessons. So this is 3 or more students, could be 10, could be 20, that would all fall into the category of group lessons. So if you're looking at teaching this way, you should definitely check out Deborah Perez's course in the Academy. That's really wonderful. Great tips in there, but it's too much for us to go into here. So just know that if you're interested in this group lesson area, that's where you should jump over to, and you should explore that further. There are a lot of more considerations there, including the equipment you need and stuff like that. But of course, there is the potential to make more per hour eventually. Now, it will also take more planning and training, so factor that into your decision. Then when it comes to how long your lessons are, and the setup for them that way, most lessons commonly are 30, 40, 45 or 60 minutes. Mostly we do them once a week. Some teachers will do them more often. And some teachers will have some group lesson weeks built into that mix as well. So most of us will have learned in 30-minute lessons once a week. But I want to encourage you not to just jump straight into that. That doesn't have to be the way it is. And it actually is much harder to change this format later. It's not super hard, but it is trickier than starting off the way you mean to continue. I highly recommend that if you're teaching students over 7, you opt for at least 40 or 45-minute lessons being the standard. there just is not enough time in 30 minutes. So having 30 minutes once a week may have been the norm, may have been what you did, but you'll soon find as a teacher that it feels quite stressful for most teachers. So do think about making it 40 or 45 minutes and whether you want to put an age limit on that. I, for instance, only offer 30-minute solo lessons to my youngest students, and those are preschool age. Over that, I just prefer that they opt for the longer lesson time because there's so much to cover and their attention span is fine for that length of time. So there's no reason not to go for it. Some teachers, as I say, will do lessons more often than just once a week. If that's something you're interested in, absolutely try it out. I do think it's a bit of a hard sell in most communities, but in some it can work, and it's fantastic if it can to see them, say, twice every week or something like that. And you may want to combine in some group lessons into that mix as well. I do group lessons 4 times a year, for instance, and 2 of those are to replace regular lessons on the midterm breaks. So we take a break from regular lessons. There's various different setups you can do. But the main thing I want to get across to you is to always go for more time if you're unsure about it. Don't opt for less. I just have never, ever in person or on a forum or anywhere else seen a teacher saying, I just have too much time to spend with this student. I don't know what to do with them. I have all this time left over in the lesson. That's never happened. However, all the time I'm hearing, I don't have enough time in my lessons. There's only 30 minutes. There's so much to do. I have theory, I have scales, I have technique, I have everything else. I hear this all the time from teachers. So just opt for the slightly longer lesson time in the beginning. And probably the parents will think nothing of it. If they do, you can just explain to them that you need all this time. You need a little bit extra time to properly and comprehensively cover everything that you need to cover. When it comes to your studio's location, you have a lot of different options available to you, really. So we're going to run through all of these. It could be at home. It could be in a commercial space that you rent. It could be at a music store, various setups there. In a regular school, elementary or high school or anything like that. It could be that you travel to students, and you could do online lessons. So let's look at each of those in turn. If you do it at home, first of all, you do need to have space to do this. Now, you don't need a dedicated room. My studio is a portion of my living room. I know that's the way for many teachers, and it may have been the way for your teacher. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it suits your lifestyle and your family and you have the space to dedicate to it, even if it's just a corner. If you don't have the space at home, you can look at a commercial space. So you can rent an office space or a storefront or anything like that and use that as your studio. Of course, the downside here is the cost. But the upside could be that passers-by would actually see your studio space and it could become a natural way to market your studio. Then there's the option of a room or a section of a music store. I know this is very common in the US and some other countries, where stores will actually rent out a portion of their store space to music teachers. And this is really fantastic if you can come up with a good arrangement that works out financially for you, because the store may be able to refer students to you, which is fantastic. They may also be able to let you use equipment or give you reduced rates on equipment and things like that. So that can be a great option. Then, if it's available in your area, you could also think about setting up inside a school. So it'll depend on where you are. I don't think public schools allow this in the US, so it would be private schools there. All schools allow it here. Most schools actually have a piano teacher in 1 or 2 days a week. In most schools I know here. So that's something you can approach a school about. Or it could be that they have entire piano departments and you can get an actual job with one, like Tim used to have in the school he was in Australia. So it'll depend largely based on where you are in the world. But the upside of working in a school, of course, is that you can work during the day. Often students will come out for a single lesson every day or each week, and they'll rotate around which lessons they're missing. And that way you get to use up daytime hours, which is fantastic if you have kids of your own and you don't want to eat into evening time hours that you should be spending with your own family. Then there's the option of traveling to students. Now, this is how I started out, so I do know a good bit about it. There are upsides, of course, mainly being marketing to parents, because it's a fantastic plus if you can come to them. They don't have to take their kid to you. They don't have to, bring all the other kids along on the ride. And also, if they're in work all day, this is a great option for them. If, say, they have childminder or at home or something and they can't drive. So this is a great way to go for parents and can help with your marketing, and you can charge a premium for the service. However, you need to factor in your mileage costs and your time costs for getting there. You're no longer going to be spending 40 minutes teaching that 40-minute lesson. You're going to be spending 40 minutes plus whatever the time is to travel there. So make sure you're being paid fairly if you go for a traveling option. And the other downside of this is that you don't control the environment. That's really what got to me, I guess, when I was doing travel teaching, was I couldn't decide not only if the instrument was tuned, I couldn't ensure that it was up to par. Of course, I could have policies about it, but I can't actually guarantee it because I'm not doing it myself. And I can't guarantee that other siblings won't come into the room and look for stuff, or any other disruption that might happen. It just feels like you have less control of the environment, and you also have to, of course, carry everything with you. So you can't spontaneously say that, oh, you know what, this book would be great for this student, and just get it out right then and there. No, you have to have planned that in advance, which is fine, but it is something to take into consideration. And the last option then is online lessons, so via Skype or FaceTime. Now, this is obviously a newer option, but it can be a great one. There's a lot of benefits to this, such as the fact that you can set yourself up in various different places. You don't have to be tied to one location. Of course, you need an instrument probably to demonstrate, but that's it. So you can set yourself up wherever you want. You can take advantage of different time zones all over the world, which is fantastic because you can set your hours a lot more. You can decide your own hours a lot more because of the various time zones. The downside might be that you have to set up the tech, although it really doesn't have to be very expensive. And you can tap into that worldwide market if that's something you're interested in doing. Now, I do want to take a second to talk about ages and levels, with the caveat that, of course, you can't necessarily pick these things in the beginning. I do know that. I have been in the position of having to take every student that comes my way. So I understand you may just need the income and you may need to take every student. But consider what you would like if you could choose, because this will affect your marketing and how you progress with your studio. So think about whether you want to include preschoolers, whether you want to specialize in teenagers or adult students, and then whether you want to teach beginners or advanced students. Which would you prefer? So when it comes to preschoolers, there's a really different demographic to teach. Okay, so preschoolers are one of my specialties. I teach a lot of young students, which you'll know if you read my blog, because I talk about a lot of games and stuff like that. And that's because I teach so many young beginners, under sixes. In fact, I take students as young as 3.5. And a lot of my new beginners will be 4 and 5-year-olds. This is a very different experience to teaching a 7-year-old. It really is. And you will have to learn about this, the way these students learn. and be comfortable with going at a slower pace, with using lots of games-based learning and getting off and on the bench and being very active. Now, if you are comfortable with those things, this can be a fantastic option for you because you're opening up to a whole different market that other teachers may not be tapping into. So that's one of the key benefits. And also, you may just love it. I mean, I just love teaching piano to preschoolers, and I get a lot of joy out of my lessons with them. Then there's the teens demographic. So Tim is famous for being really good with teenagers. And again, this takes a different set of skills. It may mean that you need to get into pop teaching and chords and stuff like that, which you can find tons of resources for in the Inner Circle. But start to notice as you take on new students, if you do get some teenagers, do you enjoy working with them? Is this something you want to target more? Or is it a bit draining for you? Is it something, not that you want to avoid completely, but that you don't want to be a large portion of your studio? So just notice your own preferences and what you really get the most enjoyment out of, what enriches your teaching life. And then there's adult students. I have several adult students. They're some of my most dedicated practicers, despite what other people tend to find. And they can be absolutely fantastic. It's a complete change of pace from other young students that you're teaching. And they'll want very different things from lessons. So if you take on some adult students, do put some research into it and the ways that they learn differently. And if you find that you really vibe with teaching adult students, then that's fantastic, because this is a growing demographic that you can tap into to want to learn piano and take up a new skill. Then there's the debate of beginner versus advanced. Now, I'll say that I actually prefer teaching beginners. I love doing all that foundational technique stuff and the beginning reading and just setting them up for success at the piano. It doesn't mean that I don't take them up to an advanced level. Of course I do. But I'm aware that this is where I really excel. I'm really good at teaching beginners and getting them to learn the basics in the right way and have that great foundation. I wouldn't enjoy as much working with a diploma student on a Beethoven sonata for 2 years. That's not really my bag. It's not what I love doing. I absolutely would do it, and it would provide a welcome change of pace, but I wouldn't want that to be my main roster of students. So think about which it is that you prefer. Do you like teaching beginners? Or do you like that in-depth study that advanced students tend to bring? So that's it for this first module of the Beginner Teacher Blueprint. What I want you to do is to go away and fill in the workbook. Take some notes about what your preferences are and how your studio is going to be set up. This is so important, and it will be the foundation on which all the other modules are set. So do take a second, take a cup of coffee and really think through this and ask questions in the forums. Talk with other teachers who are further ahead than you or maybe even behind you on the journey and see what they're thinking about doing, what they've found in different situations, and get ideas from that.